What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Moguls. My name is Findlay-Shirras, and we get the pleasure of getting to know a powerhouse in tech. You know, if you look at his background, he's done a lot of really cool stuff in tech and startup land, and just now business and consulting and education. So take a look at this CV, because if you're like me, you might wish it was yours. So, graduated from Brown.
I have to be clear. I attended Brown. I did not graduate.
Almost even better.
People say it's better.
Almost even better. Yeah. Graduated from Brown, founded a company called Clearview, acquired by Apple.
Yep.
Very nice. Founded perhaps the first e-commerce platform on the planet called eShop. Definitely makes a lot of sense. Sold to Microsoft.
Yep.
Very good. Then when working at Microsoft, so I'm sure they probably buy your company and then said you should come work for us kind of thing.
They call it the golden handcuffs.
Yeah. So if you remember MSN, okay, at one point it really was the number 2 or 3 website out there in the world under his leadership. Good for you. I imagine when you left, it did not do so well.
I don't think it's because I left, but I think as portals faded, so did MSN.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to get to know his experience also in the local media, local data, local platforms, and advertising, because that's something that's interests me. And now he's the founder of a company called OG Life Labs.
Yep.
So let's start with that. Welcome, Matt, to the show.
Thanks for having me. Fun to be here.
So why don't you just give people an overview of what is OG Life Labs and why did you start it?
So the basic idea behind OG Life Lab came from me and my co-founder's shared vision that, you know, there's a set of skills that people call soft skills, and people in their mind think soft means optional, not important, froofy skills. But as I got older and more experienced, what I came to believe is those skills are at least as important as hard skills, and in a lot of cases they're more important. And you know, if you kind of see how economies have matured, you have these people who are really deep in some area, whatever it is, legal, business development, technical, but we all need to be part of these collaborative teams. And if we're not good at handling these so-called soft skills, it turns out all that specific expertise is it's like a ship up on dry dock. It just can't really get out and do much. So our goal with OG Life Lab is to build a whole family of digital learning systems to help you gain those skills. And the first one we're doing is about emotional intelligence. And 2 of our co-founders from the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. And the goal of our Life Lab is over time to help people using a smartphone app and a whole set of coaching experiences that are wrapped around it, help you gain real skills in emotional intelligence. And then in the future, we'll introduce additional Life Labs on other soft skills topics.
What kind of soft skills do you think?
Well, I mean, we're still talking to customers to understand their priorities, but it's everything from super practical things like time management or meeting management to a little softer things like decision making or goal setting, and then to really soft topics, and by soft I mean kind of subjective, like communications. But you know, how many times have you seen a great idea die on the vine because the person who was the spokesperson for that idea, whether it's in a meeting or in a marketplace, they're not a good spokesperson. It's because they don't know how to communicate well. And so we really want to help people round out all those skills. And we are focused on selling our Life Labs to business, but the application and what we talk about is really about all of your life. So emotional intelligence, really helpful at work. Really helpful at home. If you're a parent, really helpful in that kind of set of dynamics.
What are your thoughts on self-awareness and helping people really understand themselves better?
Well, I think there's many dimensions to that. So one real basic way is in emotional intelligence. There's 2 key skills in emotional intelligence: recognizing your emotions and regulating your emotions. recognizes really what you're talking about. Where are you right now? How do you feel? The thing we always joke about is, you ask somebody, how are you? Think of how many tens of thousands of times you've asked somebody how they are, and think about the fact that every time except 20, people said, I'm good. It's like, why even ask? Everybody's going to say, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm all good here. Sometimes people don't say because it's not appropriate to share, but a lot of times they say, I'm good, because that's what they think is they're good. They don't know. Where are they really? So to your point, self-awareness is really a foundation. And it takes a lot of skill to get down to that. So that's one of the things we work at. Cool. How do you recognize it? And the phrase we use that the guys at Yale came up with is name it to tame it. You need to name the emotion to tame the emotion. And there's a lot of research that just shows if somebody can just say, am I angry? I'm not angry. I'm feeling disappointed. Just that will help you manage it.
You get into the words you use also impact the then end result and the feeling, because you could say, I'm really pissed off, but if you just say like, I'm peeved, then maybe you don't have the same kind of feeling, and it actually helps you, because if you're now describing your feeling in a negative way, the goal of life is to not feel so negative and to feel positive as much as possible. And the first thing sometimes, I've noticed this myself and with my staff and people I coach, is what words are you using to describe your experience and emotions, because that really plays into what you actually then feel as a result of it. Do you get into?
Absolutely. So probably the most important tool we use is called the mood meter. And if you kind of do a mental picture, the mood meter is just a two-dimensional chart. The vertical is energy level. So how high is your energy level? Peeved is lower energy than furious. And then the horizontal is positive and negative feelings. It
goes both ways, because one of the things that I'm working on as a person is I'm very even keel, so I don't go too negative, but I also don't go too positive.
Yeah.
And I envy some people who are able to be like, I'm fantastic, and it's like, well, why do I just keep saying good and nice?
Yeah. Well, I think being able to tap into where you are is key. And then, one thing we talk a lot about, because you were talking about, where do you want to be? The analogy I like to use is the weather. The weather's right now very cold, and it's going to snow. That's reality. It's not good or bad. Emotion is the same. You have the feeling. First step is recognize, what is it? Thinking, I want to be sunny, so I'm going to say sunny, but the fact is I'm anxious. You're not doing yourself any good by pretending you're sunny. So what's the weather? The weather is I'm anxious. Then the next question, that's recognize. The next step is regulate. Okay, where do I want to be? Oh, I want to be sunny. I'm about to have an important client meeting, and they don't want to see me anxious. So then what are the regulation strategies I can use to move from where I really am to where I really want to be? And so that takes practice. Even those of us who work in this field and think about it all the time, every day find ourselves in a moment of, ooh, what's going on? Where am I right now emotionally? So that's what we try to help people do.
Very cool. All right, well, let's get into the tech. So one of the things I wanted to ask about was, my wife is in real estate, and now I work with a lot of real estate agents, and her family's in there. I come from a health and fitness background. Okay. And so now that I'm working with them, I have an outsider's perspective on this industry and where it's going. And as a person who understands technology and maybe trends and how the world evolves, do you have a perspective on where this industry is going that maybe some other people don't share with you because they're in it and sometimes they can't see some things that maybe you can see? Is there anything about, certain technologies that you know are going to be coming and that will make a big change in the industry? Do you have?
Well, I don't know that I have any, brilliant insights. The thing that strikes me is there's a lot of concern right now about AI, and it's going to take over all of our jobs and our digital overlords and what that means. I suspect that A, it's not going to take over everybody's job. B, it's going to really change a lot of people's jobs. And the kind of timeline that I'm very keenly aware of. So when I was running MSN at Microsoft, we had started this residential real estate business. And super early in the internet, a broker's job was pretty much what it had been at that point. Then flash forward several years, a bunch of Microsoft guys started Zillow. And what did they do? In part what they did is automated a whole set of analytical, manual processes in a way that really no human could do. I mean, there's no cost-effective way to replicate what Zillow does now for free. And here we are now, over 20 years since Microsoft entered the real estate business and exited, by the way. And it's clear that what can be automated will be. Complaining about it, wishing it was otherwise is again, like the weather. It's like, I wish it was sunny out. It doesn't matter. It's going to get automated. And what's left for us humans to do, I think it's the stuff humans like to do, which is be humans. Deal with the subjective, deal with the creative, deal with the personal side of things. So, in the real estate space, as an example, the things that were kind of the mechanical part or the purely analytical,
Research,
that's going away.
market research,
Yeah, it's all going to get done, and much of it has. But then what you're left to is be a human.
Have you talked to any AI deep tech people about creativity in AI?
I read about that stuff a lot. I haven't talked to experts. I have to say, I don't. There's the Turing test, right, which is a famous test framed by Alan Turing about when will a computer be able to fool a human in a conversation. And I think the thing to remember is, even if a piece of software can fool a human into thinking it is a human, if you were talking to a real human, on the other side of that would be a real subjective human experience versus a bunch of circuitry that's just buzzing along. And so similarly, computers can be creative, but they're not really being creative. They're just applying algorithms to do things. Now, they may do things that humans find pleasing, but ultimately, if you look at Hollywood, for instance, which is the creativity business, the reason J.J. Abrams keeps getting these great directing assignments and can get all his movies produced is because when he makes stuff, people love it. What does it mean for a piece of software to make stuff people love?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. It can be consistent. It's not a human.
Hey,
So
a great piece of advertising can get a result, but am I really emotionally connected to it? And that's just another step. That's very cool.
And can it do it again? That's the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams, we don't know his name because he made one episode of Alias that we liked. We know his name because he keeps doing it.
Again. Very cool. Okay. Now I want to change gears into this local topic because you've had experience with local media,
A long
local
time ago.
directories,
Yeah.
with Microsoft and MSN, then to Yellow Pages, all that stuff. One of the things that interests me now that I'm in it is, so Yellow Pages, at least the part in Canada, $1 billion bankrupt.
Right.
Patch, there's tons of money, tanked.
Yeah.
next door, making some improvements, ton of money, but was not making money for a long time, and they're still, I'm sure, figuring some things out. Everyone just, what is your thought on the value of local? Like, why do they have that crazy valuation? Why was even Patch given so much money? Why have everyone tried and put so much money into doing local? What is really the value of this local data and local media? And why is it so hard? Why has no one been able to crack this? And literally, it's one of the industries I think that people have been working on for decades.
Yeah. Well, let me give you the freshest thinking from 1999, which is when I, was in the middle of that. And then based on my historical reflections, I don't, maybe it's out of date, but we all know that local information is enormously valuable. Whenever there's a paradigm shift, the mistake is to do the new version of the old thing. Occasionally it works, but not really. Is Netflix a new version of broadcast TV? Not at all. It's a different thing. Is Google, or even look at the New York Times. I'm an obsessive NewYorkTimes.com user. It is not a digital newspaper anymore. It's a different thing. I mean, to their credit, they have really innovated and created a different kind of content experience. And so what I was involved in at Microsoft, first with Sidewalk and then with Yellow Pages, which we added to Sidewalk, was let's build a digital version of basically a city paper. And I think what's happened is people want that content. They want that connection. But they don't think of it the same way. So when I want to find a local business, I don't know about you, I go to Maps on my phone, and it's all there. And then it's connected to a Yelp review. So if instead there had been a Yellow Page, a digital Yellow Page offering that had that information, it could be there, I don't care, I'm never going to it, because it's not my entry point. And we knew, even as we were exiting local, that internet search was going to get upstream of these local destination sites. So the one winner, it strikes me, is Yelp. Totally different model. Again, Sidewalk, which I ran, we copied city papers. I had a staff initially of 40 people in every city.
How many cities?
10 US cities and a couple international cities. And we had editors, we had
yeah, it's kind of what Patch did as well, kind of, right?
Yeah, but even more content intensive. I mean, it was huge. I had producers, I had, it was really modeled after a print publication model. The stuff these guys, they were world-class writers and creators. It was fantastic stuff. Nobody does that today, and Yelp has shown that user-generated content is good enough and is available at the low price of $0. So,
and is it just people can't make the money off the local area for the content that people wanted to create for that local area?
I was spending $4 million per city just to have those teams.
So what are your thoughts on Nextdoor? Do you think it's a reinvention of a new experience?
Nextdoor strikes me as different. I don't know anything about their business. I know they have it in my neighborhood, and my success is measured by making sure I never look at those emails, because it's just, it's people trying to get rid of old baby toys and looking for lost dogs and complaining about somebody's trees being too
So
high.
this is. I remember doing this research one time when I was getting into the space, and there was a study done by the BBC. Said 33 or 70% of people don't know their neighbor. Something like 70 or 80% of people don't know their neighbor, and then 33% don't even care to even know their neighbor, or something.
Sad.
And it goes to like this OG Life Labs and the stuff that when you have a great idea, getting adoption, sociology is usually very much lagging behind technology. And I wonder, like, that when you were looking at local, did you think that people wanted to socialize, or was it about the data? Like, what do you think is the holy grail of it? Is it the knowing the person and the address and having that connected to a neighborhood? Is it the news, the events, the deals, the businesses, the schools, the real estate, that data? Is it just having the data and then having other companies use that data? Like, what is the thing that you think actually people will consume in a community?
You know,
because a lot of people have that same thought. They're like, I don't care about some of the stuff that's being talked about.
Yeah, I think, obviously we care about businesses around us. We care about buying and selling things and getting services around us. That's, when I left that space, the Yellow Page business in the US was an $11 billion business. It was a big business. In the 90s and all the years before, when you needed to reach a business, you went to the Yellow Pages. My kids, I have a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old, they literally don't know what a Yellow Page is. They will never use that. And if I asked them to find a business, they would definitely use Maps or Google. So they want that stuff. Do people want to connect with a community of people? Of course. But that's, again, it's a paradigm shift. I am now connected with friends and family all over the world through Facebook, through other means. So when I can be close to my cousins from the East Coast in a fluent, easy way, is it as important that I know the people on my street? It's kind of not. I mean, I'm looking for some connection. I don't necessarily have to be the people on my street. Now, I live in a kind of hilly, semi-rural area, no sidewalks, so it's a little weird. But I think people's needs have shifted some. But local is important. That's a fact. And I don't think we're at the end of all this. And even if do you have school-age kids?
No.
Okay. When your kids first go to school and you want to kind of build that community around it with the parents, that's a moment, and that kind of, I think a lot of people find, your first kid goes to school and you kind of grow with that group of parents. And you want to be close to them. When my kids went to school, there was not much online for it. But now, there's all kinds of really cool mobile tools that let you stay in touch with those parents. That's a beautiful thing, and that strikes me as that'll grow and grow.
Any final advice for any startup founders out there trying to have a business and grow it and get it acquired just like you? Like, when you think, if I had to give a couple pieces of advice, what are my top two that I know work really well?
When people ask me that, which happens from time to time, my advice, which works for me, which is, I think people do startups for two reasons. One is they just have some idea, and it's just a scratch they have to itch. They have a creative impulse. They think the world needs this thing, and they want to go do it. And the other reason is because they think there's ways to make money, and they're looking for that. The second scenario, I have no idea what to do. I don't work that way. I know people who have done it very successfully. I don't really relate to it. The people who work the first way, I think you need to recognize you're not doing it for the second reason. You're doing it because you have this creative impulse. And follow that, meet the mission, do the good in the world you want to do, whether it's helping people sell houses more effectively or communicate with their neighborhood or whatever. Find a way to make money at it, by all means, but keep doing something really good. When you're doing really good things, people end up paying you for it. It ends up being really good. And what I'm implying, and I'll say explicitly, is I find sometimes the people in the second camp, it's not that rewarding because they just were trying to make money, and they start talking to customers, and customers know that guy's just trying to make money. They're not that excited to just give you their money. They're excited for you to help them. But I've seen people do it and just kill it, do great with that. But
when you are the customer, it's just so much easier to create something.
Yeah, and it's about, because I sold my second company to Microsoft during the first internet boom in the late 90s, and people were making big bucks on some pretty ridiculous ideas. And we knew it wasn't sustainable, and it wasn't sustainable. And there were just a lot of things, I won't name names, but I remember at Microsoft buying businesses, one in particular, $280 million for a particular acquisition. And within 90 days, that whole team had left the company, and we just turned the thing off.
Wow.
And it was really good for them. Good for them. They didn't misrepresent what they had.
Yeah.
We were kind of silly enough to buy it, and there really wasn't anything there. And I think it's nice to make that money, but the illusion is you can replicate that. That was just a crazy act of good luck. You're more likely to get very little out of it. So if you're going to get very little out of it, at least you could be in the first camp doing something you really care about. And I started a business a number of years ago trying to help teenagers with soft skills, and it just didn't work. And it took a lot of time, and I put a lot of money into it, and so did some brave investors. It didn't work out, but we all, I think, feel like it was worth it. We were trying to do something good. Thank goodness for that versus, that was just a waste of time.
How can people reach out to you and connect with you if they want to get to know you?
Go to ojlifelab.com, ojlifelab.com. You can Google us or find us there. You can email me at mattk@ojlifelab. And check out what we have. We shipped 32 days ago or something, so it's brand new. We're just in the market, and we're excited to get early feedback from people.
Well, thanks very much for being on the show. As always, subscribe to the show if you haven't already, so you can learn more from wizards and tech geniuses and startup founders on the podcast.